Greg Abbott and Ken Paxton are always on the wrong side of the law, but it never seems to matter until today. A federal judge in Texas has finally stepped up and said, nope, y'all is stupid. And not only that, what you're doing is against the law. Now, I know all eyes are on Texas because of their subservience to Trump and their willingness to gerrymander at his bidding. But the irony of the gerrymandering is that it's probably going to cost him a Senate seat because it's mobilizing Democrats in ways never seen before. And it's going to backfire when Gavin Newsom and California outmaneuver them.
It's shockingly delusional. Look in the mirror, sir. You're the one who initiated this. You coward. You coward. You couldn't stand up to the bully. You couldn't stand up to Donald Trump. You had to kiss his feet. You couldn't stand up for our democracy. Couldn't stand up for principles.
But today's story also carries national implications in terms of the Republicans' relentless drive to destroy the First Amendment of the Constitution. You remember the Constitution, the primary governing document of our country that the MAGA movement has flushed down the toilet? Well, the Constitution has never meant much to either Greg Abbott or Ken Paxton. I mean, you're talking about two clowns that have no problem kidnapping a Democratic lawmaker and holding her prisoner inside the State House. Where else but Texas? Well, yeah, okay, the answer to that question is Mississippi, Oklahoma, Louisiana, probably Alabama, certainly Florida. So, yeah, okay, you get my point. The utter lawlessness of the MAGA movement has spread to the states, who have no fears of Pam Blondie stepping in and stopping them from shredding the Constitution. Enter the federal judiciary, which is not beholden to Mango Mussolini, Greg Abbott, or any other executive official. In fact, they have authority over them, however much the judiciary was unwilling to rein in Trump. So in a bid to keep the Bible thumpers voting Republican, Texas passed a law requiring the Ten Commandments be displayed in every classroom. And Greg Abbott signed it.
The other major headline out of Texas, where today Governor Greg Abbott signed a bill, I should say, into law, requiring that the Ten Commandments be posted in every public school classrooms.
The law would require both elementary and secondary schools to display the commandments on a durable poster or a framed copy in every classroom starting this fall. The display must be at least 16 inches wide and 20 inches tall, with text large enough to be read by someone anywhere in the classroom.
Now, frankly, I'm still waiting for the clever principal who mounts a video screen in the lobby and runs an endless loop of the bombastic Cecil B. DeMille production of the Ten Commandments, the one with Charlton Heston parting the Red Sea. A little behind-the-scenes note, that was done with Jell-O. But today, the New York Times is reporting that federal judge Fred Bieri of the Western District of Texas stepped in and put a halt to it. And his ruling was pure Lone Star wisdom and a laugh riot to read. The law itself was ridiculously specific, which not only made it indefensible against secular constitutional arguments, but against religious ones as well. The most notorious part being that the Ten Commandments must come from the King James Bible. Any number of Christian denominations could argue that the wrong version is being imposed on them. And certainly, members of the Texas Jewish community joined in the lawsuit to make just that point. Judge Bieri, surprisingly, focused part of his ruling on the principle of appropriateness. At first, he zeroed in on coercion, writing, even though the Ten Commandments would not be affirmatively taught, the captive audience of students would likely have questions. And his point here is important because he doesn't let the state off the hook in terms of coercion. In his ruling, being a captive audience is its own form of coercion and does not exonerate the state just because they stop short of actual teaching. But then Bieri goes one step further in terms of those captive students and their questions. So make sure you're sitting down and not drinking something right now. Bieri writes, teenage boys, being the curious, hormonally driven creatures they are, might ask, Mrs. Walker, I know about lying, and I love my parents, But how do I do adultery? And yes, I am just waiting for an appeals court to wrestle with that straight out of Texas common sense ruling. Certainly, an appeals court is the next stop, and Paxton has vowed he's going to appeal the ruling, but not in time for this school year, and Paxton doesn't have the brains to make a successful appeal on such an important constitutional issue. It does raise the scary specter of this case ultimately making it to this corrupt Supreme Court, who show no regard for either precedent or the Constitution. And here is where it's going to be interesting to see their decision making. This same court that stood up for the rights of a cake maker to turn down clients based on his religious freedom is now going to have to face religious freedom arguments from a coalition of Jewish, Muslim, and Hindu parents. Let's see them turn themselves into a pretzel defending against those religious freedoms. No doubt they will, with Samuel Alito leading the way and John Roberts scolding everyone for not showing enough respect for the court. So what Beery did was make sure that Our Father, who art in heaven, stays there and out of Texas classrooms for now. I'm Anthony Vincent Gallo for Occupy Democrats.